Welcome back.
Oh, I started recording early.
Welcome back to another
Windows Defender.
Yeah, Windows Defender themed episode of Higurashi.
What is our theme for this chapter so far?
We were doing conventions. Welcome back to an AWA themed episode of Higurashi.
Okay.
Well, because it's the sources.
Oh, because right.
Yeah, Anime Week in Atlanta, AWA. You know. AWA.
Magfest, more like.
We can't open an episode with that. We cannot open an episode with this. We can't fucking open an episode. You can't open with that, man.
I can, and I will, and I'll do. Don't edit that out, by the way. Even though you want to.
He'll DM me about this in like a year and be like, "Hey, should I take this line out?"
Listen, the only reason I wanted your input on that is because I couldn't tell how much I had just hated myself, or it was actually just fine.
No, the conversation was perfectly fine. I don't think there was any issue there.
Mm-hmm.
I was chilling. I was enjoying bopping along. He doesn't even let me pose. He always takes these god awful mid. Oh, I haven't done streaks this morning.
Oh wow, there you go.
Somebody is a bitch today. It's gonna be a spicy episode today.
I can already have Red Bull with me, so. Well, I woke up. Keep talking. I woke up before my alarm, and I'm feeling great. So
nice.
Me feeling good means I can put down everyone around me.
True, honestly. Speaking of putting people down, we can talk about
I saw the dog on your fucking phone. I thought you were going to talk about putting a dog down.
Yeah, I'm gonna fucking kill my dog. So I'll feed her ego and actually name drop her. So Crystal, I hung out with her yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at one point she mentions Viva Pinata, and I was like, yeah, Viva Pinata, like it's cool, whatever, blah blah blah. Moved on. And I just hear her like typing furiously and mumbling and yelling and just like screaming to herself for the next like 30 minutes. And I keep asking, what the hell are you doing? She refuses to tell me. And then she drops the fact that she had been spending the last half an hour trying to download and emulate Viva Pinata on her computer and just had no fucking idea how to. So talking about having Windows Defender on, I was like, are you just clicking on whatever link you see and hitting download? Yeah.
Maybe she does need Windows Defender.
I'm like, dude, come on, man. Yeah, so now I kept trying to tell her to get it through Game Pass. She was like, fine. So then she bought it this morning, and that she was having cock and ball torture with using keyboard controls for a controller game.
Wow, that's crazy.
So DS4, great solution. Shout out to the GitHub. Shout out to DS4.
PS4 Windows.
Nice. Yeah, DS4 Windows. Dark Souls for Windows, always a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
I like that joke. I'm reusing it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. I think.
As long as I don't have to hear it more than once on the recording, that's fine.
The running DS4 bit?
Yeah.
Would kill myself.
Oh, this is rando.
Is this a jobber?
It's a jobber.
Alright, well, time to begin Higurashi, you know what I'm saying? Keiichi. Hey, bud. Have I told you I started thinking in Keiichi recently?
That happens whenever I start listening to like a podcast, book, whatever, for a series of time, and it's like in an accent, I'll just start thinking in that accent, and it drives me insane sometimes.
Dude, like, now that I've done Keiichi for so fucking long, not only can I sing in his voice, but I also, like, sometimes I'll just be sitting there, and if I want to do, like, a funny voice and, like, be a funny guy, it's just Keiichi now. Like, whenever I did, like, a radio host bit when we were playing The Forest, and I was just like, what's up, you Torch fans? It's your host, DJ Hannibal, spinning you the hottest tracks to burn down the woods. You're listening to 92 FM. This is Sock'em Bop'em. And it's just the whole thing is in Keiichi. I used to do like different funny voices and things like that, and now it's just Keiichi all the time, 24/7, and I can't stop him. And that's why I'm so excited once I get the Higu cosplay that I can put it on. And as soon as I put it on, it's gonna be this all fucking day, baby. I ain't taking it off until the cosplay
when I put on the idiot
off.
costume, it's gonna be oh my goodness.
That's this won't come out before this happens, but I really want to do a fucking bit with James if he does Sadako, where, you know, he does the thing where he puts his arms behind his back and I stick my arms through and I'm just like, man, Mion-san, what's going on over here? And he like lip syncs to me. I think that'd be great.
There was something we were talking about, some basketball gag, and I was just thinking, like, you remember that video we saw where it was the Renda cosplayer running around killing a bunch of other Higurashi cosplayers? We just did like a basketball gag of the guys, the crew playing basketball for like no reason.
Dude, the Higurashi cosplay group is gonna go too strong. It's going to be too fucking powerful.
It's gonna go crazy.
It's gonna go crazy. Alright. Banquet. Yeah. Oh yeah, these are Nightingale people.
Nope.
No? Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think I know where we are, but...
Banquet to back and over. One more speaker, then the toast starts. Are you ready?
This is back end, we're ready. We can't hear anything from inside, so please give us a cue when the speech is wrapped up.
Listen up, 10 bottles of beer per table. Make sure to deliver them to your areas smoothly.
Young hotel workers dressed smartly in bow ties pulled bottle after bottle of the beer cases. Bottle after bottle out of the beer cases, preparing for the toast. They waited for the cue to serve the drinks while listening through the intercom. At a normal party, they could put bottles of beer on the table ahead of time, but if there was a lecture before the party, then they couldn't. Guests don't mind sushi going dry due to a long speech. They don't like seeing their tables get wet with condensation from the bottles of beer. And more than anything, they certainly don't want to drink warm beer. That's why beer has to be served right before a toast. However, there's always a speech before a toast, and usually a long one. Especially at a big party like this, there are lots of guests that give speeches, so it's extremely difficult to know when to serve. For that reason, the bottles end up sitting outside by the banquet room, and people end up drinking warm beer anyway. There were several dozen tables with white tablecloths on them in the banquet room. Approximately 8 people were sitting at each table, so there were at least a few hundred people in the room. The banquet room was filled with excitement. There were many plates with many different kinds of food on each table. A sushi platter, sashimi platter, a fruits platter. Also along the wall, there were cooks ready to serve fresh sashimi. All the guests appeared to be well-mannered gentlemen, and clearly were notable people in various different fields. The huge and beautiful chandelier above them clearly indicated that this hotel held a status of good enough for these famous people. An elderly gentleman was having a lengthy speech on the stage before making a toast. Usually people don't like such long speeches, especially if it's before a toast. But the guests occasionally shouted, "Yes, yes," and sometimes gave him a loud applause, filling the room with their fervor. Well, maybe fervor was a pleasant way to put it. It's probably more accurate to say their excitement was bizarre. Yeah, I was gonna say, I assume all of this is like Tokyo. And not like normal guest activities. All I can do now, when I'm looking at these photos, is try to figure out how he did it. I'm pretty sure this is Gaussian blur. Maybe the Gaussian blur and linear blur? I'm trying to figure out what he did. Ryukishi, I know you're listening to this. If you want to send us an email, we can get in contact and figure it out, you know? Does he blur them like this in Umineko and Psychonia? I think it's similar, but slightly different. Anyway, this is you. That's fucked up. Oh, it's also rando, but still you. Okay. Old man, which country would actually teach their people to show respect towards their own flag? Or not to show respect towards their own flag? There are no others. It's happening only in Japan. That's right, that's right. Is forcing people to respect their national flag and anthem an obstruction of their freedom? That's a foolish idea. Listen, love for one's national flag and anthem comes naturally to all. To know ourselves, to know our culture, to understand our history and our country itself.
Those are the things that make you realize that you are a Japanese citizen. That make you understand the part you play as a citizen of this country. And the feeling you get from that is love towards your own country. However, those anti-Japan teachers are proclaiming that it's militaristic brainwashing. I got through that one somehow. Those stupid claims are wrong. What are those people doing anyway? They're teaching our children to hate being Japanese. They're the ones brainwashing them with this self-destructive education. They are teaching our children that Japan should be ashamed of itself, and that they should be ashamed of being Japanese. Forget who you are and deny your country. That's what they're teaching them.
SpongeBob fish.
These innocent children listen and believe such nonsense. Of course they do. They go to school to learn things, right? If their teachers teach them that, of course the children believe it. Can you believe such corruption exists? We must do something about this country's education now, no matter what it takes.
The sound of applause filled the banquet room.
I put my heart and soul into that one.
Amazing performance. All the gentlemen agreed and expressed that they felt the same way by cheering him on. After that, a gentleman wearing a cloth sash approached the stage. The hall welcomed him onto the stage with another round of thunderous applause. A rousing theme from a popular drama series played as he took the stage, but it's entirely unnecessary before the overwhelming applause.
What a loser.
The man's sash carried his name written in large letters, along with the name of the prefecture he was running for office in.
Let me introduce you to a patriot! Kun. This man has served the former governor as his right-hand man as the director of the office of the governor for many years, supporting the prefecture's government for a long time. Since the previous governor has declared to fuck my life. Since the previous governor has decided to retire, he was appointed as the next governor. You wanna be the governor?
You're
Oh, am I still
you're
going?
all the jobbers.
Oh, fuck, okay.
Gotta give you something to do.
Hello, it's me, the governor. Unfortunately, we have those anti-Japan teachers in our prefecture. While they proclaim freedom of education and freedom of thought, they're shamelessly forcing an anti-Japan education down on our children. They don't teach real history. They teach our children that everything was Japan's fault. They don't even mention that the true purpose of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere, or all those who fought to save Asian peoples from Western control. Is that the GIACP? The GAPC? How would you say that? The GEACP.
CS, probably.
Oh, I forgot the S.
I don't know how you would.
GAPES?
Yeah?
I'll figure it out. They don't even talk about how many Asian countries were actually Western colonies before Japan stood up for our freedom during the war. Our country has recovered amazingly since then, yet our children don't know any of that because those teachers don't teach them. How truly, truly sad. It's a Trump tweet right there. I can't stand the fact that those anti-Japanese teachers are actually teaching our children alongside those teachers who take teaching seriously. They are insulting our educational institutions. I will become a governor and get rid of those teachers. I will straighten out our education system and make sure our children will grow up to be decent young people who can carry on Japan's future. Kun announces his candidacy for next year's prefectural governorship. We appreciate your support for him. Keiji. He wants out, dude. He's like a beast that's been caged. I promise I will straighten out Japan's education system. Thank you for your support.
Again, the banquet room filled with applause. The man was receiving a standing ovation. I need to explain a bit more about this banquet before you understand.
Understand.
Before you misunderstand, it wasn't a conference of a political association or a lecture by a political candidate. It's hard to believe, but this was nothing more than a meeting of a college's alumni association. Everyone should be familiar with what those are. Whether it's an elementary school, junior high school, or a college. Once you graduate from one of those, you normally belong to an organization of alumni. You receive invitations for reunions where you enjoy talking about the good old days. However, there are many different types of such organizations. Some are simple, and some are united with much tighter bonds. And once an organization becomes united with those tight bonds, it's no longer a simple organization of alumni. Rather, it becomes a significant faction known as an alma mater clique.
Or clique. Like Adam Sandler's clique.
In Japanese society, it's traditional for graduates to form tighter bonds that go beyond the level of an organization. Also, the more superior the alma mater, the stronger the tendency holds true. The Imperial University, one of the best universities in the country, is famous for the deep bonds its graduates form. Graduates. Why do superior people like to bond? Maybe because they take pride in being superior. But more than that, maintaining connections is the most significant reason. All Imperial University graduates are elites in their respective fields. They are likely to succeed and become important people. When they do, the unity of their alumni association gains immeasurable meaning. In fact, even today, the Imperial University graduates maintain their tight academic clique. Yeah, it is clique. And they hold great influence throughout many different fields. They interact with other universities as well, so the greater graduates' bonds are extremely tight even today. Additionally, while Imperial University usually refers to the University of Tokyo.
What did Ryukishi mean by this? What did he mean by this?
Sometimes it's used to mean all 7 major universities in Japan. It's like,
Are they...
What's the term?
No, but we know the origin of Tokyo.
What's the fucking term for all, like, Yale and...
Oh, Ivy League.
Ivy League. Yeah, it's like Ivy League. They are located in Tokyo, Kyoto, Tohoku, Kyushu, Hokkaido, Osaka, and Nagoya.
Damn. All right, I see you.
They are all great schools. There happens to be an organization of alumni that includes all of those 7 universities. The elderly gentlemen in this banquet room were each from one of those organizations. However, not every graduate would get an invitation here automatically. In a society of select gentlemen, and in order to become a member, it is a society of select gentlemen, and in order to become a member, one must first fulfill several conditions, such as a recommendation from an existing member, contribution to the society, possession of status, and so forth. Therefore, all the members are important people from different fields, and obviously the power of this organization is of political nature.
So Tokyo is literally formed by all of the Ivy League schools in Japan. I see.
But there's one more very important criterion. One has to meet to join. Strong patriotism. A heart that longs to contribute to Japan and its rebirth. As a result, this organization has become extremely nationalistic. Up on the stage, the candidate for the prefectural governorship was still talking passionately.
Ah, yes. Me and my underground organization that we call, like, New York.
Yeah.
That is...
It would be called Washington.
That actually is so much better, because, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that... Because, Tokyo is the capital of Japan.
Yeah, and Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States of America. Congratulations, Connor.
Do I forget about that sometimes? Only you could guess.
That's the capital of Oklahoma.
Ohio. So, me and the boys forming Washington, which is just a bunch of Ivy League nerds who get together to form a nationalistic political party to influence the direction of the entire country.
Yeah.
You know where Higurashi would happen? Like the Hinamizawa syndrome and disaster?
Where?
Louisiana.
I mean, yeah, that's where the swamps are.
That's what I'm
No,
saying.
it's gonna be by the Okefenokee, so it'd be either Florida or Georgia.
Georgia?
Because I keep saying Okefenokee when I see Okinomiya.
Throwback joke. It's welcome back to Throwback Thursday, folks.
It's Sunday.
They don't have to know.
If I upload this on a Thursday, sure. But
He spoiled it. He pulled the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz.
I am the wizard. Of course I pulled it back. Kill yourself.
What?
What? And among those elderly gentlemen in the crowd, Takano can be found.
I won't I won't lie to you, Chief. I accidentally hit enter. You haven't read the first part.
Oh, up on the stage, the candidate for the prefectural government. No, I did.
Oh, he did.
Retard.
Oh, I'm gaslighting you.
Takano seemed to be used to this kind of conference, and seemed unsurprised at anything that was said. But at the same time, she looked rather fed up with it. As she was in attendance, she must have been one of their members, which meant she possessed not only an extremely excellent academic background, but that the older gentleman here had acknowledged her equivalent contributions to society, and that she possessed strong patriotism. However, her academic background was the only qualification she had met to join. She was only able to join as a special case because of her connections. She didn't even hold prejudiced ideas like the other members did. So why was she here today? Probably because it was of the same reason as the man giving a speech up on the stage. The man on the stage didn't actually have prejudiced ideas, much like Takano. He only prepared a speech that he knew the guests would like. Politicians only want votes. Each and every person has a vote, but appealing to each one of them takes too long. So the most efficient way to appeal to organizations with a unified idea and a unified will is that what it said? The most efficient way is to appeal. Yeah. In other words, this man was giving this speech so he can garner support from those powerful people. The elderly gentlemen in the banquet room will then do their best to support him, since he appears to share their ideals. They can offer many different kinds of expediency, support, and assistance. To an outrageous degree, I might add. If the day's event continued in the same way, the organization would likely decide to officially support him. They will probably give him a great deal of financial aid. They'll assist him in different ways as well. Of course, the man on the stage won't be the only one gaining something. When he wins the election and becomes a governor next year, the organization will welcome the governor as a new member and gain even more political influence. And eventually, the organization will become so powerful that nobody can ignore it. Those of you reading this right now probably get the sense that they're no mere alumni association. You'd be absolutely right.
Thank you, Ryukishi.
You're welcome. After reaching this level, they were a fine syndicate. No, they would be a secret society if the group wasn't so open about its activities. Now, I'm sure some of you readers are brushing this off, thinking there's no way such a suspicious organization could exist in Japan. But everything I've explained is entirely true. There are several such influential groups and organizations within our society, and you need to understand that they hold powerful political clout and influence our national policies. There are alma mater cliques like the one I've described above. Others are scientific societies serving different parties, industrial groups, advisory committees, religious organizations, community service groups, and so forth. Also, there are right wings and left wings, the hawk and the dove. I won't go listing the specific names here, yet you've probably read them every now and then on your average newspaper.
Ryukishi said, "Wake the fuck up, sheeple. Lobbyists are real." Thank you.
In Japan, the terms for such forces aren't very common. Most of you readers think of suspicious organization wearing white hoods when you hear the phrase secret society and laugh it off.
Dude, Keiji with the freaking Ryukishi with the KKK drop.
But unfortunately, that's a huge mistake. In America, where there's far more territory and citizens, there's way more groups like that, and they possess such vast influence that ignoring them is impossible. So the terms that they use for such forces don't apply to those on the scale of this syndicate. Sometimes people say such groups have more power than the White House, and they are referred to as the shadow government.
Is this like his schizophrenic episode chapter?
I don't know. Even here in Japan, we had a shadow government before the war, our Zaibatsu. After we lost the war, the GHQ dismantled those blocks. About 40 years have passed since then. There's no guarantee our country hasn't given birth to another shadow government, given how good we are at collusion, groundwork, and backroom deals.
That's so true.
Mio Takano was, in fact, attending a conference of such a shadow government.
Ryukishi would subscribe to the Shadow Wizard Money Gang.
It might appear to be a guest house at a huge golf course. There were no golfers in sight. We're in a new scene, I think.
I think so.
Oh, wait. There are no golfers in sight, but by appearances, that must be it. But appearances can be deceiving.
Man, this has been an interesting chapter so far.
Yeah. This wasn't a golf course, but a huge backyard. The guest house was, in fact, a very stylish mansion. Normal people would be surprised to learn that this was a private residence.
He's talking about the Sonozaki residence. Is he?
True.
No?
The interior of the building was as lavish as the exterior. There were beautiful carpets on every floor, expensive-looking decorations on the wall,
Definitely not.
and expensive-looking bottles of alcohol on the shelves. That's the kind of room Takano could be seen in. There was a knock at the door, and an old man in a wheelchair and a young woman pushing it forward. As Takano set up to bow, the old man stopped her by raising his right hand.
Oh, is this Grandpa?
This is a different old man.
God damn it. No, you don't need to stand up. Long time no see. I've been telling you to come see me anytime, but you never do.
It's great to see you, Koizumi-sensei. The old man sat down on the sofa with assistance from the woman. He was very old. His face was covered in wrinkles, and he could hardly do anything on his own. Even so, he still held a great deal of power and influence.
Oh my, you haven't changed a bit, have you?
Nope.
Oh.
Oh my, you haven't changed a bit, have you? I can see lipstick on your neck.
Oh? Is that right? Good grief, how embarrassing.
There's no lipstick on his neck. The woman who was helping him with his wheelchair was too beautiful to be a mere helper, so Takano had suspected something. As it turned out, her guess was correct. Although he was so old that he could die the next day, he wanted to stay sexually active until the very end. Even the Grim Reaper would think that's just absurd.
Ryukishi had to make sure you know this old man fucks. Oh, yeah. Mio-chan, you've become quite beautiful yourself. You're not a little girl anymore, eh?
Oh, stop. If you really think that way, why did you try to touch my bottom,
What have you got to lose from having an old guy like me touch your butt?
I'm sure you have plenty of chances to touch a softer butt, don't you?
What the fuck is going on?
Takano and the old man enjoyed a tasteless conversation. They had clearly known each other for a long time and were very close. The young woman came back to serve tea. After she left, the old man started to speak.
Anyway, I'm so proud of you, Mio-chan. I'm sure your grandfather in heaven is proud of you, too.
I hope so, but I'm not even close to approaching the level of my grandfather's great work.
Takano-kun was unlucky in many different ways. The era he lived in... If he lived in a different era, I'm sure he would have finished his research.
But he lived in that era, and ironically, that was why he noticed the existence of Hinamizawa syndrome.
The world today is in the nuclear era, with America and the Soviet Union glaring at each other over mounds of nuclear stockpiles. It takes nukes to have authority as a major power. Yet we've forever abandoned our nukes thanks to our 3 anti-nuclear principles. In this age, we are now a nation without nukes. How deplorable.
In the middle of the 20th century, despite raising tensions between the East and West, there was a temporary peace known as the Cold War, brought by a balance of nukes pointed at one another. Permanent memberships in the United Nations were monopolized by nations with nuclear arms. They secured their predominance with nukes, bound the world with nuclear non-proliferation treaties, eternally banning non-nuclear nations from the world stage. For Japan to become a nation that can compete with the world, it must develop nuclear arms, or something as powerful. That was what some people believed, at least.
Realistically, Japan will never arm itself with nuclear weapons. Oh, oops. Other way.
Realistically, Japan will never arm itself with nuclear weapons.
arms.
I know. The citizens wouldn't accept it. Even if the government ignored their opinions and armed itself with nuclear weapons, it wouldn't work.
By abandoning nuclear weaponry, Japan gained the deterrent power of the United States. Though some people thought the only way for Japan to become equal with the United States would be to get nuclear arms of their own. But realistically, that was impossible. Even if Japan armed itself with nuclear weapons, that wouldn't automatically let Japan join the great powers. Takano and the old man discussed the balance of nuclear power in the world. Eventually, the sound of the cuckoo clock reminded them to return to the main subject at hand. The old man pointed to the attaché cache that had been sitting next to Takano. Takano nodded once, opened it up, and removed the contents. There were brand new bills packed in it. How much was actually in there? A bundle of brand new million-yen bills is 1 centimeter, so there must have been at least enough to make up 8 digits. There were also 2 more attaché cases by her side. However, neither Takano nor the old man were surprised at all. Takano closed the attaché case and bowed. Thank you very much, Koizumi-sensei. I'll never forget about this.
Money should be handled by younger people. I can't take it to heaven with me. I just hope this will be of assistance to you. Use it wisely.
Of course I will. I'll use this money only to make my grandfather's dream come true.
I envy Takano-kun. What a wonderful grandchild he has. I'm sure he's bragging about you up there.
I haven't done anything yet. I'll have earned this praise when I complete my grandfather's work.
I'm so jealous. My boys are no good. They're only interested in making money. What really matters is how the money is spent. How you contribute to the country is what's most important. That's how you repay your debt to it, you know.
Oh, are you saying that treating all of those lovers so lavishly is also a way of repaying your country?
Of course! When they shop, the country makes money. Money goes around, you see.
What a shitster, dude. However, those lovers would probably end up buying some foreign goods. Things probably don't work quite the way this old man thinks they do. Takano chuckled to herself.
But the money I give to those women and the money I give to you are completely different.
I know that very well.
You've worked very hard. You've retained trust and support from so many people. This is the first time I've mentioned it, but Haruyama-kun and Mochizuki-kun both weren't sure about you because of your age at first. That's why I'm acknowledging your efforts, and that's why I'm giving you this money.
I understand.
Also, for me to give you this money means that I recognize you as the official successor of Takano-kun's research.
Thank you very much. Thank you for believing in me. I truly appreciate it.
No, don't mention it. This research is Takano-kun's, and yours too. He wouldn't want anyone else to take over. So thanks to all your effort, I didn't have to spend too much time convincing the other old folks.
Completing my grandfather's research is the least I can do for him. I won't begrudge any efforts towards that aim.
Doesn't your granddad talk about not using this as like a weapon of war?
They only really
did
talked
I like
about
headcanon?
Well,
that?
they so far they just talked about what it could mean if parasites could control, like if like ideology was controlled by parasites or some shit.
Okay. Because I feel like Takano's granddad would not want her to exterminate like 4,000 people.
Probably.
He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy.
Maybe.
He doesn't strike me as the genocide type, at least.
Takano smiled as she remembered everything she had gone through to get to this point. It went without saying, but the old men around Takano saw her as someone from their grandchildren's generation, or maybe even younger. Just how much trouble did Takano have to endure in order to gain the trust of those with such a large generation gap? It was hard to describe to those who couldn't even imagine her trouble. But Takano earned it. She gathered allies, drove away enemies, garnered support, and forced them to recognize her. She spent a long time establishing trust and rising to a status that the old men would welcome.
which was all the more reason this meeting was a reward for her many days of hardship. Now that she officially had a powerful influence backing her, she could spread her wings and see the completion of her grandfather's unfinished research.
Well, now that you're officially continuing Takano-kun's research, there's something I need to tell you, Mio-chan.
What is it? I'm listening. The old man paused and pulled an expensive cigarette from a cigarette holder on the table. Takano lit it up for him. She didn't smoke herself, but knowing that the old man did, she kept the lighter in her pocket. The constant build-up of those little gestures like that were how she gained the trust she held today.
Takano-kun noticed Hinamizawa syndrome in Manchuria, not Japan.
Yes. According to my grandfather's journal, around Showa 15, he learned that many soldiers sent from Hinamizawa to the Kwantung Army expressed terminal symptoms, which led him to surmise that an unknown infectious parasite dwelled in Hinamizawa. Under the harsh conditions of war, people sometimes lost their minds. In those conditions, did we have a closing quote?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Under the harsh conditions of war, people sometimes lost their minds. In those conditions, those who were sent to a far-off battlefield from Hinamizawa were spent their days under duress, and occasionally they exhibited terminal symptoms, hallucinated, and caused twisted incidents. Yet that all occurred in the extensive chaos of the battlefield. Every incident was handled separately, and no one suspected that there was an underlying cause.
At the time, Takano-kun was working as a military physician in the Kwantung Army. He was researching the prevention of different infectious diseases. And one day, he noticed that several incidents of deranged behavior were occurring among soldiers from the same hometown. He hypothesized that these symptoms were unique to those from Hinamizawa and began his own personal research. He hired soldiers from Hinamizawa as the workers in his research center and studied them there. Then he learned of the unique Hinamizawa faith in Oyashiro-sama, and he was convinced that he found an infectious parasite with unique properties. Closing quotes.
Yep. Some may wonder how he could be so certain that these symptoms were caused by unusual parasites. At the beginning of the 20th century, German doctors proved that some unknown diseases were caused by bacteria and parasites. At the time, it wasn't too far of a jump to assume that unknown pathogens could be behind unknown diseases. For instance, in modern times, it's been revealed that beriberi is caused by vitamin B1 deficiency. But at the start of the 20th century, many loudly proclaimed that it was the work of an unidentified pathogen. Yes, my grandfather predicted that his research would be valuable to the army, so he asked for a budget, but they just laughed at him. As a researcher, her grandfather was very talented and passionate, but when it came to gaining the aid of political powers, he simply struck out. Hinamizawa syndrome. No. The possible existence of a parasite that infected the human brain and controlled emotions. Even though he made the remarkable achievement of discovering a mystery no one had explained before him, he was unable to convince others of that achievement, and spent his life alone, unable to garner support, and unable to achieve proper recognition for his achievement. Independent research has its limit. Talented people, funding, and backup. A research project can be successful only if all those things are present. Takano had noticed her grandfather's mistakes, and that's why she did everything she could to obtain all of that.
The military at the time was hoping for a low-cost, immediate-acting weapon. While Takano-kun's research was extremely intriguing, it didn't meet the military's expectations.
But I heard you were the only one who understood my grandfather's research, weren't you? In his journal, he calls you his best friend.
We came from the same hometown. It was a miracle to run into someone from the same town on such a distant battlefield. Although we weren't close in age, we became very good friends, so we talked a lot. Many times he told me his research would be revolutionary, and asked me to lay the groundwork to secure funding for full-scale research.
I read in his journal that you talked to many different people about his research. Unfortunately, its value was never recognized, but I'm sure your support meant a lot to him.
but I was never able to really do anything for him. That's why I want to help you, Mio-chan. Helping you is like atoning for my mistakes.
Thank you very much. He was lucky to have you as his best friend. If only there was if there were more understanding people like you in the military's upper echelon. It's very regrettable to think that my grandfather's life might have been different. Also, the war probably wouldn't have happened, so.
Yeah. Yeah, no shit.
The old man closed his eyes and paused for a moment. Shortly after that, he looked into the distance and spoke.
Actually, that isn't true at all. The higher-ups were interested in Takano-kun's discovery.
What? I've never heard that before. Then why didn't they support his research?
Something came up, and they couldn't let him look into Hinamizawa syndrome. Only a few of the top brass and myself knew the reason. Now that all but myself have passed, I think I should tell you, Mio-chan, since you're carrying on his work.
What came up? What was it? Takano had believed until this day that her grandfather's research was ridiculed by everyone, which was the reason why it had never gained any recognition. Her grandfather asked the military for funding so he could uncover the secret of Hinamizawa syndrome during the war. But just like the old man had said earlier, the military wanted an instant-acting weapon. That's why they weren't interested in his research. That's what she had believed. But as it turned out, the military had actually shown an interest after all.
Before I go on, I need to explain about the Kwantung Army in Manchuria at the time. While the Kwantung Army was stationed in Manchuria, opinions were divided on whether to advance our forces north or south.
Manchuria is north Manchuria is north of Korea. So north would be up to Siberia, south would be down into Japan.
Down to Japan.
And then like into Beijing and shit.
See, he knows geography.
Mm-hmm. I play map games.
So,
I'm just a nerd.
I played Hearts of Iron. What about it?
I don't play Hearts of Iron. I play EU4.
Yeah,
and Victoria.
I played EU4.
A little bit of Victoria now.
I heard the new one was kind of shit.
It was all UI is kind of garbage. The simulation wasn't amazing. It did not have as many features. Oh my god, the UI is actually just kind of garbage because if you compare, just comparing Victoria 2 to Victoria 3, the amount of it's a graph game, number one, because you're simulating an economy, building factories and moving people up class ladders so you can support so that they can I lost the word. So they can use political power to
political influence?
So they could gain political influence. Yeah. So, you know, like farmers become factory workers. Factory workers, so they make more money, and people owns the factories, and they make money, and so that just, you know, snowballs, and so capitalists gain a lot of power, so your country becomes like a capitalist thing. So it's like a political economic simulation. And you need in order to like know what you're doing, you need a lot of information. And that Victoria 2 gives you just fucking graphs, pie charts, and all that kind of shit. Meanwhile, you have to go through 5 menus to look at the same information. To like compare information.
Yeah.
In Victoria 2, you would click a button, and the whole screen would turn into like a nice like graph you could look at. Victoria 3, it's just the the left quarter of your screen, and you have to keep going. You just go through menu after menu. Yeah, go through menu after menu and scroll and look at this, and then go to a different menu and go back and look at this and compare it. It's dog shit.
It's one of those where like, you know, giving all information at once is very overwhelming for a new player, but once you start digesting it, it's a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
Versus burying it under every single menu to where it is almost impossible to find anything fast.
It's very pretty.
You can find it, but you can't find it quickly.
It's very pretty, but they try to make the Crusader Kings UI into a Victoria UI, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work in the slightest. At the time, Japan had troops in Manchuria, but the north-south deter the Soviet Union. Opinions were divided on advancing north to deter the Soviet Union. Wait, how did I... Okay, starting over. At the time, Japan had troops in Manchuria. The opinions were divided on advancing north to deter the Soviet Union, or advancing south to expand our territory and secure resources. With the Soviet Union as its and its predecessor, Russia, being a landlocked, frozen nation, they had long yearned for an ice-free port that wouldn't freeze over in winter. They had made numerous attempts to expand their territory southward, too. Those expansionist policies were said to be the cause of the Russo-Japanese War. In their history books, it said that Japan won the Russo-Japanese War, but it was actually a draw, ending in a peace sign at the Treaty of Portsmouth. Both sides had simply set aside their spears after mutually exhausting their forces. It wasn't like Russia capitulated and offered a complete surrender. As a result, the perception of the Russian threat continued to smolder. Later, the Russian Empire was overthrown by a revolution, but Japan was unable to shake the threat that the new Soviet Union would advance south.
According to the history books, Japan went south. They signed the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact and abandoned the northern advance. As a result, when the Great Patriotic War began, the Soviet Union was able to respond to pressure on their German forces by pouring in their eastern fronts.
On their German front by pouring in their eastern
forces. Fuck. Though the Germans had managed to lay siege to Moscow, the Soviets launched a massive counteroffensive that reversed the tides of war.
Even with the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact, the Soviets couldn't tell that Japan would attack them at some point. Because of that threat, the Soviets had to leave some forces in the Far East, and they weren't able to devote enough troops to the German front. For starters, the Soviets had forged the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact too, yet Germany broke the treaty and attacked the Soviet Union. To make matters worse, Japan and Germany had forged a military alliance. With those factors in play, the Soviets naturally couldn't trust Japan to uphold the Neutrality Pact. Ironically, the Soviet Union was the one who broke the pact, but I won't go into that now.
Thank you, Ryukishi.
They broke the pact right after the nukes fell, and that's why they surrendered, basically.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. That was the whole... Like, they knew they were going to lose the war. They're like, well, we're kind of just fucked.
Yeah.
But we don't want the Soviets to have... We don't want the U.S. to have a... We don't want to completely capitulate to them.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to get the Soviets to mediate the peace negotiations. Then the Soviets declared war, and they were like, fuck it, USA, help us, save us.
I still can't believe Hitler tried to invade Russia in
winter. and then like it was, and then the nukes were like a useful way for the emperor to save face and be like, oh, I care about my people now.
Yeah. We got nuked.
We got nuked, so I don't want more of my people to die. So peace with the USA.
Dude, World War is so fucked. Like the geopolitical fucking game that was World War I and World War II is fucked. And the fact that everyone tells a completely different story to make themselves look better, it's so fucked, dude.
Guns of August is a good book.
What's it called?
Guns of August.
Okay, I will put that in the back pocket.
I've talked about it before. I don't know if on here, but it's just the first month of World War I from each fucking perspective.
That sounds really fucking good. Exactly. Hitler signed the Tripartite Pact because he expected Japan to keep the Soviets' other front in check. But ultimately, Japan abandoned the North. With the superior German offensive, many supported the idea of waiting and watching it play out. They believed that even if we did advance north, it would be after Germany conquered Moscow. However, that plan was exposed to Sorge.
Sorge? Maybe it might be a Russian name, so probably
Sorge! And the Soviets transferred their heavy tanks from their Far East border to the German front. That secured Germany's defeat at Moscow. But the Germans began seeing... And the Germans began seeing a string of defeats, starting with the Battle of Kursk.
It was a turning point in history, huh? During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was recognized as a global power. But at least in Showa 15, the Kwantung Army didn't think it was a particular threat. Japan had earned a victory with the Russo-Japanese War, and they took the new Soviet Union government lightly, assuming it wouldn't be stable after overthrowing the Russian Empire.
How long was the Soviet Union around? Was it more than 30
it's like
years?
20s to 90s, so like 70 years.
70 years? Okay.
The underestimation was corrected after the Nomonhan incident in Showa 16. After several fierce short-term battles with the Soviet Union's advanced mechanized corps that led to great losses, the Kwantung Army realized they shouldn't fight the Soviets, and that inclined Japan toward the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact.
But at the very least, up until the Nomonhan incident, the Kwantung Army was strongly conscious of the Soviets and divided on advancing north or south. Thanks to that, there were also voices advising caution, suggesting we avoid all-out war with China in order to shore up our forces against the Soviets.
But the Sino-Japanese War broke out after the Marco Polo Bridge incident, right?
So there's a thing in Part 8 of JoJo where certain words will have, like, they'll be bolded and they have little apostrophes at the front and the end.
Yeah.
And they'll usually bold words like house and thing and, like, names. And so the whole time I'm fucking reading this, Ryukishi keeps name dropping battles and packs and everything like that, and I just keep seeing the Part 8 text where the, Marco Polo Bridge incident has the apostrophe at the start and the end and is completely bolded, and it's every single one of them.
69 years. 22 to 91 was the Soviet Union.
Nice. Okay.
It was on Christmas Day that they broke apart too. So
Really?
Yeah. Well, maybe 26, but it was Christmas, so
Santa Claus did that.
yeah.
He's our savior.
July, Showa 12. Japanese and Chinese armies were staring at each other across the Lugo Bridge in Beijing. I don't know how to pronounce Chinese words, so I'm not even trying. It was the middle of the night on July 7th. The Chinese army fired on the Japanese army in training, and they engaged in combat. This triggered the long Sino-Japanese War.
Yes. According to the historical records, that incident triggered the Sino-Japanese War, but with opinions divided over advancing north or south, the army was equally divided over a full-scale confrontation with China. No, in fact, we received orders from General Staff Headquarters to resolve the matter quietly before the incident grew much bigger.
So those supporting the northern advance wanted to settle the Battle of Lugo Bridge quietly, insisting that conflict with China was pointless in light of their anti-Soviet strategy. However, those on the mainland supporting the southern advance used this incident as cause to dispatch more troops to China. They enacted hard policies against China, and thus the Marco Polo Bridge incident became the trigger for Japan and China to enter all-out war. After that, their bitter struggles in the Nomonhan incident, Japan greatly revised their Soviet strategy. They signed the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact, and it secured the route for their southern advance. The Sino-Japanese War got worse and worse.
Okay. If the Marco Polo Bridge incident hadn't happened, it's possible that history would have gone very differently. Maybe we would have ended up in a war with them anyway. However, if the South faction didn't get that chance, the military authorities would have kept restraining the Soviet Union, and the Soviets would have had to divide their forces between East and West. And maybe Germany could have invaded Moscow. Then Japan could have gone to Siberia. The map could have been very different today.
Germany wouldn't necessarily have won the war if it had succeeded in taking Moscow. England was keeping its strength on the other side of the Dover Strait. After that, after all, and the United States, well,
the other
England
side
was,
of the Dover Strait,
right.
after all.
Oh, on the other side of the Dover Strait, after all, and the United States was poised to enter the conflict. Besides, Napoleon once occupied Moscow, but in the end, he couldn't beat their winter and had to withdraw.
Yeah, that's kind of the free, defense mechanism Russia gets. Is it so abysmally awful and fucking cold there that it's, impossible for invaders to adapt to how, Russia lives throughout the winter and everything like that, and how they're able to march troops through the winter. It is one of those... Oh, this is talking of first one.
It's one of those ifs, huh? The Axis might have won the war.
Yes, it is possible that the gunshots from the Marco Polo Bridge incident changed the tide of history.
Both sides had different opinions of who fired the shot, right?
According to the Japanese side, a Chinese soldier fired a shot at a Japanese soldier who got too close to the Chinese camp. However, the Chinese side claimed the shot was a conspiracy invented by the Japanese military.
But the shot was fired, even though nobody knew who actually pulled the trigger. It sparked the Sino-Japanese War.
Yes, that's what the history books say.
But Koizumi-sensei, what does that have to do with my grandfather?
Honestly. In the Marco Polo Bridge incident, a shot was fired at a unit that was training in the middle of the night. Everyone was summoned for roll call. They were missing one soldier. This soldier came back later, and it was said that he was sent as a messenger and got too close to the Chinese camp. By the way, did you know that soldier was from Hinamizawa?
It's my favorite part. The Sino-Japanese War was entirely because of the Hinamizawa syndrome.
Thank you.
I love you, Ryukishi.
Thank you, revisionist Ryukishi.
Eh? Really?
When Takano-kun was talking about the Hinamizawa syndrome, he said that soldiers from Hinamizawa could suddenly fall into a deranged state. And we realized that that soldier from the Marco Polo Bridge incident was in fact from Hinamizawa.
Then what about the first shot fired?
I don't know the truth, but I think it is possible that a soldier within the terminal stage of Hinamizawa fired the first shot, Hinamizawa syndrome. That soldier was killed in the incident. Since there was no record of it, nobody knew exactly how he died.
It within sounded right, but I don't think in is supposed to be there. It's possible that a soldier with the terminal stage of, or it be within the terminal stage.
Within the terminal stage.
Like either way, there needs to be no space or no in there. That is a manga gamer moment.
Yeah. Thank you, manga gamer.
Did you read that last part?
Yeah. Nobody knows exactly how he died.
Okay.
And it's just The
Japanese side claimed that the Chinese army had fired at them and negotiated with that in mind. Just a scant few days after the incident, Japan demanded an apology from the Chinese. And as a show of force, dispatched 3 divisions of reinforcements. Chinese side was, of course, opposed to that. The situation escalated at once.
If research into Hinamizawa syndrome continued, the higher-ups thought it would negatively influence the Japanese army's claims. So in order to avoid the risk of traversing that political gray zone, they rejected Takano-kun's research.
So, because of that, they refused to even consider my grandfather's research long after the war ended, too.
Yes, that's exactly it. The war is over now, but there are still some conflicts there regarding historical recognition. Even if Takano-kun didn't mean for it to happen, if his research into Hinamizawa syndrome became public, it might cause a resurgence of quarrels over the long-ended war. Certain authorities were afraid of that, so they made sure his research was ignored even after the war. I was long warned not to aid him in any way myself.
Takano tried to remain calm, but she couldn't stop herself from grimacing. She had just found out the real reason why her grandfather's research had been ignored. It was because of secret maneuvers by political masterminds. If those masterminds feared it so much, ironically, that meant they acknowledged the importance of this research. Takano was saddened and frustrated to no end by her grandfather's lonely life.
However, they're all dead now. I'm the only one who knows about this. If Takano-kun was still alive, I was going to apologize to him and give him my unconditional support. But he's no longer around.
That just means you're a coward, buddy.
Honestly, that's why I'm apologizing to you and offering to give you my full support instead.
Are you sure? Wouldn't research into Hinamizawa syndrome dredge up those same subjects again?
It's different now. Besides, research into Hinamizawa syndrome may produce more than a mere local disease. Depending on your research, post-war Japan may gain a trump card that makes it a world power once more.
So the tides and times have changed then?
That's right. Unfortunately, Takano-kun didn't live long enough to see that tide change. But he has you to continue his research. So as long as I'm alive, I'll give you my full support. I promised to help Takano-kun, but because of various things, I couldn't do anything. So I want to make up for that as long as I'm alive. I think that's the least I could do for the man who called me his best friend.
Koizumi-sensei, thank you so much.
Oh, don't mention it. I'm glad I was able to tell you everything before I died. Anyways, until I'm gone, I'll make sure you get everything you need, okay? So if anything comes up, be sure to let me know. I'll do anything for you.
Takano couldn't even imagine what kind of bond this old man and her grandfather had between them. But thanks to that bond, Takano was able to gain a powerful supporter. Tears welled up in Takano's eyes as she gave him an emotional look. But in her mind, she was practically dancing at the promise of this old man's full support.
She's such a freak. I love Takano.
The old man and Takano both bowed at the same time to show each other their appreciation. Once that was done, the old man became a little more serious. After that far too lengthy preamble, he finally said what he really wanted to tell her.
So there you have it. This is what I wanted to say. The Hinamizawa syndrome has the potential power to make history. It may even twist the fate of our country. So keep that in mind, and be careful with your research. Editor's note. She was not careful with her research.
After the proprietor finished serving the food, she bowed and left. The room was very tastefully put together, reminding them of a tea ceremony room. While it was sparsely decorated, quite a bit of money had obviously gone into it. This was a very famous Japanese restaurant, where many high-up officials and other important people held secret meetings. Takano was there, accompanied by about 5 gentlemen.
Gentlemen?
She was sitting slightly further away from the men. They were clearly in a much more important position than she was. One of the men, wearing an expensive double-breasted suit, told Takano not to be so nervous.
Please, relax, Takano-san. What we read is very interesting to us. I can't believe this research was just sitting there for dozens of years.
It is surprising. I thought most of the research on BC weapons the Japanese military conducted was during the war. During the war, it failed to bear fruit, and nothing was left after the U.S. military confiscated even the fundamental research.
I heard that this research was basically barely even glanced at by the top brass.
I see. That's why nobody knew about it and GHQ didn't investigate it. That's, in that sense, at least it was truly fortunate.
Interesting that Dr. Takano's research would be succeeded by a different Takano-san. I suppose that's fate. It's like the
deceased.
It's like the deceased is using your body to complete his life's work.
Maybe that's true. I feel a mysterious connection to him too. Takano adored Takano Hifumi and called him grandfather, but she hadn't revealed that relationship to others. She realized it wouldn't be beneficial for people to think she was involving personal feelings in her continuing Dr. Takano's research. So publicly, she once had exchanges with Takano Hifumi, and after his death, discovered his research documents with his remains, and chose to carry it on. At least that's how the story went.
Well then. What do you... Oh, that's Takano? No.
I think so.
Brass?
Well then, what do you think?
The defense agency was very interested. According to Nakagawa-kun, the defense agency's Technical Research and Development Institute showed great interest. They offered to sponsor the research too.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Nope.
Oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations, Takano-san. Thank you very much.
Here's what they said. There's a research council for next generation deterrence being led by experts from several different ministries. One of those is called the Alphabet Project. Have you heard of it, Takano-san?
There's no way she would know about something like that. But it was very possible for these nationalists to research something dangerous without citizens knowing about it. Society forms something like a web made of connections between people. People hold hands with other people who share the same ideas and end up knitting a net. Of course, some nets are well known, but there are some secret ones too. So there was no way of guessing just how the men at this meeting were connected. A society involving research in deterrent weapons for the next generation. The Alphabet Project. With those words, it was possible to imagine what that might entail. Deterrent weapons. That usually refers to nuclear technology. Weapons are normally used to destroy enemies. However, the general idea of deterrent weapons is very different. The assumption is that they won't actually be used against anyone. Nuclear weapons are largely used as a threat to prevent enemy invasion. Both the US and Soviets possess large stockpiles of nuclear arms, keeping each other in check. But they will never actually use them, because if they did, there'd be a nuclear war, and both countries would be destroyed. So they're like a legendary weapon you never draw. Of course, the last resort only works because both sides have nuclear weapons. If one side lacks them, then they lose all military negotiating power. In other words, nations without nukes are powerless before nuclear-armed states.
Oh, that can't be true. Japan abandoned nukes and it still functions as a nation today.
Or so some people may be thinking, but they're wrong.
It's just Ryukishi, okay.
Well, Japan abandoned nukes, but lies under the nuclear umbrella by allying itself with America. That means the nation functions thanks to America's nukes. However, that also means we must resign ourselves to forever being a vassal of America. In order for Japan to escape that and become a powerful nation equal to America, it must possess its own deterrence arms and step out of that nuclear umbrella. That society must have been put together by experts who believe in that ideal. Given that, the name Alphabet Project made sense. Nuclear weapons are a weapon of mass destruction. However, weapons of mass destruction aren't always nuclear. They also include biological weapons and chemical weapons. Atomic, biological, chemical. The initial of these three words make up ABC. That's why weapons of mass destruction are sometimes called ABC weapons. I won't go into weapons of mass destruction that don't belong to those three categories.
So what's up with Ryukishi just LARPing with the reader in this chapter so far?
I don't know.
I've been meaning to ask about that because a lot of this chapter has been Ryukishi going, "Hey guys, Ryukishi 7th here. Have you heard of the shadow government?" And that's been like half the chapter.
He's just being real, that's all.
Be real.
That's like a Higurashi sprite of Ryukishi turns into actual Ryukishi. Be real.
Is there a Hiku sprite of Ryukishi?
I don't know. No. He hasn't drawn one.
Do people know what he looks like?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I've shown you a picture.
Oh yeah, he's just like a little guy.
ABC, Alphabet. In other words, Alphabet Project must be a code for research into weapons of mass destruction. As it happened, this guess of Takano's was correct.
By rights, Japan should possess nuclear arms. We established ourselves as a peace-loving nation after the war, and after our vast international contributions, we've been recognized as a permanent member of the UN. Yet until we possess nuclear arms, we won't be recognized as a proper nation. That is the long-held desire of the post-war Japan.
Exactly. However, realistically, thanks to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the major nations hold a monopoly on nukes. Worse, our domestic public opinion is growing allergic to nukes, so foreign and domestic pressures make implementing them impossible.
And biological and chemical weapons are sometimes known as the poor man's nukes. Small countries that can't own nuclear weapons have already started research into that kind of weaponry. Oh, whoops.
Takano-san, please don't misunderstand us, okay? The purpose of our research isn't to obtain a biological weapon. Instead, our goal is to prevent such weapons from coming into Japan from other countries. So this is research unto self-defense. I want you to understand that. Lol.
Yeah, sure, pal.
Why'd you take off all the keys on your arrow keys?
Hungry.
You ate them?
I'm hungry. When I get hungry, I fidget.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Takano hated this Japanese tendency to make excuses, but she didn't let it show on her face. No matter what they said, they already saw the value in using this research toward biological weaponry. However, in truth, that was just an excuse as well. If they actually wanted to research biological weapons, then it would be much faster to research diseases like smallpox and anthrax instead of an unidentified disease like Hinamizawa syndrome. So it wasn't actually correct to say that the defense agency was interested in it as a biological weapon. In other words, Takano needed a powerful sponsor that could back her up with funding, personnel, and a facility to conduct her research. So she used her connections and turned to the old men behind the government and the company, reaching out to each of them and getting them to forcibly pull funding out of the defense agency under the excuse of its application towards biological weaponry. That was the truth. I have no idea if I spoke that sentence correctly. Therefore, her project wasn't officially recognized by the defense agency. To be exact, the people who secretly controlled the defense agency were the ones who knew about it. These masterminds diverted funding from the defense agency to the Alphabet Project, and then they pushed for Takano's research to be a part of it. Takano gets her funding, and the influencers get to drain public funds through kickbacks. Considering that, it was doubtful this project was genuinely about researching the next generation of deterrence arms. It was probably just an excuse for the masterminds to funnel money into their own pockets. Well, those complicated matters didn't matter to Takano. Whatever those old men and influencers were planning wasn't her business. As long as she could get the funding for her research, that was enough. Either way, Takano had found her sponsor. It was one of the biggest organizations around, too. This had always been her grandfather's dream. Takano was trying to stay calm, but she was about to jump up and down in excitement.
Bro, Ryukishi is really telling me about how much he hates the government, huh?
Yeah.
And this is really the part when it becomes a political drama, huh? Yeah. Nakawaga-kun says... Nakawaga.
Fuck!
Nakagawa. Nakawaga.
Nakagawa.
Nakagawa. Ah! Fuck. Wagagura. Nakagawa. I'm so hungry. Nakagawa. Gawa. Nakagawa-kun says that once the research is underway, he doesn't mind buying it out. Although it's still incomplete, he definitely sees potential in it. Ugh. You're absolutely right. This research is only halfway complete. Sufficient funding, facilities, and personnel will be indispensable.
I have no idea. About that, here's where the negotiations start, but apparently they wish to take this research in its entirety. I feel bad saying this, but they think the burden is too much for you to bear alone. Hearing that put quite a damper on Takano's ecstasy. I'm not trying to make money off of this. I'm working as a researcher purely out of intellectual curiosity. What I need is a sponsor, and what they seek are results. That was a relationship I had hoped to establish. Takano realized she was talking rather breathlessly, so she tried to calm herself down. Either way, they'd be backing the research. Considering they are hoping for results that merit the budget, they probably felt that Takano was still too young to handle it.
I know. You've been working on this for a long time, and you don't want anyone to just grab it from you, right? I totally understand that. Of course, we've already informed them. So here's the compromise we came up with.
First, we'll start your research as an offshoot of the Alphabet Project. Once you have the board of directors' approval, you'll be given official funding. We'll have you participate in the project as an associate researcher, and you'll take part in the research that way. If she wanted their funding, she'd have to fall under their authority, of course. So she had no objections.
However, the Research Society has listed a few conditions in exchange for funding this project. First, as was just mentioned, is to entrust the position of lead researcher to an individual that's skilled and talented in this field of research.
I hate to interject, but who would be more knowledgeable about this than me? Other than the late Dr. Takano, of course.
Now. Please calm down, Takano-san. I understand how you feel.
Still, how is this any different from selling my research to this individual? This isn't what we discussed at all.
Calm down, Takano-san.
Those cunning old men didn't miss sight of the faint leak of anger that crossed Takano's expression. They gave evasive laughs, as if remarking how immature she still was if she let her emotions show over such a little thing. However, they weren't laughing to look down on Takano. On the contrary, they were trying to tell her to wait until the end.
Of course, we'll make sure you get your way. Koizumi-sensei told me to take good care of you. Do you think I would just ignore you after he told me that? Don't worry. Please let me work things out. I'll make sure you'll be happy.
What do you mean?
You see, I get to select the person in charge.
Everyone chortled except Takano. After a moment, she joined in. In other words, he meant that he would find just the right person. The defense agency had suggested finding an expert to lead the project because they didn't feel comfortable with just Takano. However, Takano's sponsor was the one tasked to find such a person. In that moment, Takano realized it. Ah, how wonderful it is to have such a powerful backer.
Let me work it out. I'll find some candidates for you. All you have to do is pick the one you think would be the most suitable.
Takano felt better after hearing that. While she wouldn't be the official head of the project, she would end up leading it from the shadows. Of course, she wasn't an expert per se. Having a partner would actually be beneficial.
Give me some time to talk to the other end. I'll make sure you'll be happy with the outcome. Please just be patient for a while.
I understand. Thank you for everything.
Oh, by the way, it's not just the defense agency. Nagata-kun from the Ministry of Health and Welfare is willing to help you too. He introduced me to Ito-kun from National Institute of Infectious Diseases. He's willing to help you with the equipment and other technology.
Really? Thank you so much.
This is a national project, isn't it? Congratulations, Takano-san. This is all because your efforts and the deceased Dr. Takano's hard work.
Oh no, this is all because of Dr. Takano. I haven't done anything yet.
Being humble is a good virtue, just like Koizumi-sensei told me. You truly are a nice person, aren't you? No wonder he adores you. Takano's shooting children.
Anyway, they want you to join the defense agency. Luckily, you have a doctor's license, right? We'll secure your position as medical officer of the TRDI. Do you mean I'll be a public servant? I wasn't expecting that.
All organizations that are involved with the Alphabet Project are public institutions. The SDF is actually interested in this research as well, and they're making strong requests to dispatch some of their personnel too. So depending on the circumstance, you may be treated as an SDF member.
Well, just think of those matters as officials squabbling over jurisdiction. So to stand above those officials, you'll need your own official position. No matter what, we'll make sure you'll be happy, so please, don't worry about anything. I understand. I'll let you work things out. But knowing Dr. Takano's research was once rejected by the old Japanese military, it's hard to believe that the Self-Defense Force is interested in it now.
Well, that couldn't be stopped. With the war situation worsening, the Japanese military sought something with immediate effect. Something that could turn the war around. I don't think they were looking down on Dr. Takano's research.
That wasn't true, of course. Takano already heard that confession from the old man. She exhaled. To her, it was like the meeting in front of her was happening somewhere far away. She had longed for this day to come, and worked so hard to reach it. Finally, her grandfather and his research was attaining recognition. This was the day she had dreamed of. She was frightened, just imagining that it might be an actual dream. True joy can't be felt all at once. Oftentimes, it's a delayed reaction. Takano thought that must be exactly what she was feeling.
I imagine you'll probably be given a field officer's rank. Since you'll be second in command, you'll likely be a major.
That's wonderful. Major Takano, huh? My, I'm a little jealous. As a man, I wish I had a rank like that. Boy, oh boy. Major Takano, huh? Mm-hmm. A major? What does that signify?
Well, it's reasonably high in the rank system of the SDF. It's likely a sub-manager at a company, I guess. That will be your rank once the project gets underway.
It's equivalent to a lieutenant commander in the old Japanese military. What a coincidence! Dr. Takano was also a lieutenant commander of the old military. Takano remembered suddenly. They were right. Her grandfather had been a lieutenant commander in the Japanese military. Thank you, Ryukishi.
Do you think he was a lieutenant commander in the Japanese military?
Never heard Ryukishi repeat himself.
He says it 3 times in the same page.
Everything she had done until today was so she could continue her grandfather's research. Now everything had fallen into place. She had even been granted the same rank as her grandfather. She had always believed that succeeding in his research would be proof that they had had a bond tighter than blood. Now she would even be the same rank as him. This is fate, Takano thought. Maybe this is even a message from Grandpa. Yes, it must have been a shout of encouragement from heaven. It was proof that she inherited not only his research, but his will as well.
And then she shoots children.
Takano couldn't help but feel a sense of destiny for attaining the rank of major. Grandpa, I'm finally here.
Oh, good job, Takano.
Nobody else could hear her say that, but her grandfather in heaven could. That's what Takano believed. She had only come so far. There's still a lot of things to do for this research to be recognized as a great work. Otherwise, her grandfather wouldn't become a god. She wouldn't become one either. You must become a god. That was in her grandfather's will.
How did I do her grandpa's way? Was it like, oh, Takano, it's me, your grandfather.
Right?
Oh, it's me, Grandpa.
Something like that.
You must become a god. Oh, shit.
He has no keys on his
I hit the wrong button.
I was unable to do so. That line preceded it. It was her grandfather's dying wish.
I was unable to do so.
Her grandfather entrusted it to her. All of his research. A god can't be physically brought back to life. A god is made in the hearts of the people who remain alive. Her grandfather will live on in her heart. His exploits will be known to many, and all the scholars will fight to read his documents, to steal them from each other. And they will learn about Hifumi Takano, who began his research during the war. They will know that nobody understood him, and that he ended up devoting his lonely life to his research. And finally, they will extol his grand achievement. What a long-ass chapter.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm like, we weren't even like tangenting hard during that, and it was like an hour and a half.
It was just the beginning that we tangented. Oh my gosh. Well then, how you feel about that?
I feel
the weight of history get one step closer.
I feel good.
Yeah?
Ryukishi has turned it into a political drama. I'm ready to read the tips.
No new tips. So
Well, we've read the tits.
Well, congratulations. We all everybody when you watch this, if you're
a real Higurashi head and you finish this episode, comment below Viva Pinata is mid.
True.